We've always wanted to put any surplus money we've had into improving the home. We wanted a nice, warm, comfortable home.
We thought it was about time, as we were getting older, to move closer into the town. And we could see that there was quite a lot of potential to improve the energy efficiency of this house, which is what we've been doing over the last 5 years. One of the first things we did when we took possession of the house was to get solar panels, not on the front roof, which is facing almost due south, but in the back garden, because we didn't want them to be too much in the face of our neighbours who weren't very far away on the other side of the road. And with them in the back garden, nobody knows they're there. Not long after we had the PV panels installed, we had a smart PV controller put in, which allows us to use more of the electricity ourselves rather than some of it getting exported back to the grid, for which you don't get very much income. So the order now is PV comes into the house first. When the house is satisfied, it goes into the storage battery. When the storage battery is satisfied, if the car is plugged in, it will then go and help charge the car. And if the battery is satisfied or not plugged in, surplus electricity then goes into the immersion heater, and only then does it get exported back to the grid. And sometimes now we export hardly anything each day back into the grid because we use it all ourselves, which is much more cost effective.
We had an electric car before we moved here, so one of the first things we had to do was to make sure we could charge it. So we had to install an electric charger.
We've adopted a off-peak electricity tariff, which gives us 4 hours of off-peak between midnight and 4:30 in the morning, which is at the moment 9.5 pence per kilowatt. And because we added a storage battery to the system, that was the last bit of the retrofitting work that we did, we are often able to run the house almost totally from off-peak electricity, because the battery charges during that off-peak time. Also, we run the dishwasher and the washing machine during those off-peak times.
Yes.
PV panels can put some power into the battery as well. And so the battery very often lasts us all day. We do still have gas in the house. Some people wonder why, but we've kept the gas hob. But it's rather annoying that the standing charge per month for our gas supply is actually greater than the cost of the gas that we're burning.
That's partly my fault that we've still got gas, because I prefer to cook gas for the hob, because I considered it to be more controllable, although I'm assured that some of the modern hobs are equally as controllable. But as yet we haven't taken that jump. And I've always tried to be very economical when I'm cooking, especially using the oven. So if I'm cooking a meal in the oven, I will cook as much of it as I can in there, and if I can't get other things in, then I might consider making an extra casserole or something at the same time and freezing it. So we've always got meals in the freezer which we can just take out.
The freezer in the garage is designed to be used in an outhouse where there are extremes of temperature, and it's got extra thick insulation on it to stop it possibly overheating during very hot spells. The structure of the house was in very good order, and we really didn't need to change any of that at all. We knew the cavity foam insulation might not be the best, and we didn't know how wide the cavity was, but when we had a small extension put on at the back of the house, we quickly discovered that it was only 50 millimetres wide, and the foam was perhaps not of as good a quality insulation-wise as new insulation materials are these days. We had a thermal imaging survey done of the house to just see where there were leaky parts, and we found in fact that it was beginning to shrink back a bit from around the window openings. So when we replaced the windows, we asked the installation company to come with aerosols of extra foam. So we filled in the missing bits before the new windows went in, so that we avoided getting any cold spots. We hadn't originally anticipated putting an air source heat pump in, but when the boiler upgrade scheme grant came along, we took advantage of that. And so we ditched the gas boiler and we've had an air source heat pump put in.
I think having the heat pump installed, the house is a more consistent temperature throughout the 24 hours. I'm quite certain that that means that we're living a healthier lifestyle because we're not oscillating between the cold and the sometimes overheating. Some houses who have their temperature set quite high.
And we've got a rather unusual control system for the heat pump. It's called Homely. It's not very common. And it is internet controlled. And the Homely control system for the heat pump not only looks at the temperature in the house and also the temperature outside, but it also looks at weather forecasts and can take advantage of cheap rate tariff times. And there's an algorithm running in the background all the time, which makes the most economic use of all those different factors to bring the heat pump on, sometimes way outside the normal time settings that we've given it. But overall, it means that we are taking best advantage of all the different circumstances in which the heat pump needs to work.
We've set the room temperatures for 2 particular times in the day, one around the time we usually get up and the other sort of early evening, so that if we're out for the day, we're not overheating the property. But sometimes we find that the heat pump comes on, as John has said, in other times as well to keep the temperature up.
And the set temperature is 19.5 degrees, which is lower than we would have had it in the past with a gas boiler or in previous homes. But we find in this house, because it's so evenly warmed, 19.5 is quite enough. We're also lucky, as I'm saying this now, the sun is streaming in through the front windows and we're facing pretty well south, and we get quite a lot of solar gain, particularly in the winter when the sun is low in the sky. And that helps to keep the house, the front of the house particularly, a little bit warmer than it might otherwise.
In the living room, we decided we wanted a log burning stove. We'd had one before and found it very good. So that was one of the things that we had done as soon as we moved in. We've put thermal linings for all curtains so that we keep out any drafts, not that there seem to be any. We have triple glazing and they do have air vents at the top if we feel we need a bit of air in for circulation.
As we've replaced any carpets, we've specified a thicker underlay.
Yes.
And that's got some thermal quality, which just helps a little bit offset the fact that the floor isn't insulated.
And any gaps under doors, we use draft excluders, including a blanket which we've folded up because the doors are too wide for the common size of a draft excluder. We've also got panels behind the radiators to help reflect the heat out.
And they look like that. When we refitted the kitchen and the bathroom, while we could get to all the pipe work, I insulated all the hot water pipe work that I could find to help reduce the cold runoff times when we turn the hot tap on. And that has made quite a difference. And we save all the cold runoff and it goes into a bucket which is kept in the bathroom for flushing the loo. Because I object to using drinking quality water or something like that. We have a water meter here and we've managed to get our water consumption down quite significantly. We even put a bucket in the shower to catch the water off the shower head and then save that for flushing the loo as well. Bit nerdy. We've put up a greenhouse. We've got compost bins. We've got 4 water butts not far from the back door so that we can fill them up easily with rainwater for loo flushing. We also use those water butts for washing the car. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be expensive things in trying to improve the energy efficiency of a house. There are lots of small things that people can do which have no or very low cost. We were fortunate that we had some funds to be able to do the things we've done, but we've only got them because we don't do things like fly to the Spanish islands for a week holiday. 2 trips for 2 people to a Spanish island and back probably would equal the cost of putting solar panels in. I think we've done as much as we can, and we're pleased with what we've managed to achieve.
Yes, yes.
Our running costs are down. Our carbon footprint, which we recently remeasured, as far as the house itself is concerned, our carbon footprint is now 0.05 tonnes of carbon, and the average house heating footprint for the Strettons is something like 4.8 tonnes. So we've made a big dent and achieved quite a lot, I think.
Yes.